two T's, at bbc.co.uk, or Facebook, which is your chosen method of traffic these days by a long shot. On Facebook, Mark Patterson Show.
BBC Radio Foyle with Mark Patterson.
The Good Mother, with the subtitle The Death and Life of May Harris, is a moving account of the life and times of a local mum whose descent into dementia in her later years. May had to have round-the-clock care from her family. This book was written by her daughter Geraldine, with information gathered from family members from a daily diary which kept a record of the day-to-day events surrounding May's care. Geraldine, everybody in Derry's going, who is she and what is she? Her maiden name was Harris, but she married a Bradley, so people would know her as May Bradley from Craig and Broadway.
That's right. 36 Craig and Broadway, May Bradley.
And a big family, of course, and a well-known family in Derry.
I think so, yeah, 11 of us. So everybody knows one of us.
So, what was that like? How do you look back on your mum marshalling the troops there, the 11 of you being reared in the home?
Well, I was the youngest, so when I was growing up, the house was just full of people and all ages. Like, I mean, steps and stairs, really, you know. The adults right down, so the house it never emptied. My mammy was always in the kitchen. She never sat down at a dinner table.
I was going to say, can you imagine these days having 11 kids? How did they do it?
Well, there's people had more than 11, you know. I mean, I'd be shocked if people's had 16, 18, you know. You only have to look at the deaths in the journal and you see the ream of names after a parent that's died. But, I mean, my memory is that my mammy she never sat down apart from when we all went to bed. And then she would have sat and knit or read at night, you know, in the quiet on her own. I never remember her sitting at a dinner table with us. She had off a peace plate in the kitchen, or she had a bit of bread and jam when we were having our dinner, and it was several settings because there's no way you get us all around a table.
But these were difficult days in Derry, you know,
absolutely.
60s, 70s, very, very, I mean, literally troubled times, you know.
Yeah.
What was her trick, you know, because I'm assuming you didn't, you know, pull the shutter down on your mother. I mean, I'm assuming she was a very shrewd lady, a very shrewd manager in the home, was she? She
was careful with everything, and managed everything with lists. My mammy had lists of everything. We actually moved into the house a few years after she died. Me and my husband, we bought the house, and we were finding lists of everything for months. I mean, I'm sure if I could go into a cupboard or a drawer, I'd still be able to pull it out. Lists of shopping, lists of bills, lists of prayers, lists of all our names and what she was praying for us, for each one of us, you know.
Isn't that lovely?
Heartbreaking, you know, but absolutely lovely. But, I mean, she really, if my mammy didn't write it down, she had a fear of remembering it. I remember finding a list where she actually said, get up. And it was the first thing, get up, get dressed, you know. She had to keep herself supremely organised.
And a woman of deep faith?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Very Catholic, but Catholic in that Derry kind of way, where she would have went to Mass, she would have made us get out to Mass, you know, and had a faith, you know, a faith in the Sacred Heart and Our Lady, you know, that I never took on, but I can appreciate, you know, that she gained so much from it.
Yes. There's a quote, you know, and it jumps out at me, Geraldine. Pray. This was her. You should have said this with your mum. Pray for a happy death, and when you start a baby, pray for an easy birth.
I love that. When you start a baby.
Start a baby.
That's another process. Yeah. That as soon as you know, then you start praying that you're going to have an easy birth. And I mean, these were times when my mum had her first child in 43. You know, during the war.
Wow.
And she knew from her own mother that these things didn't always work out well, and for her neighbours, you know. So an easy birth and a safe birth was what was important to her, because she was the heart of the family, you know.
When you
she
start
was
a baby,
gone, what happened to the rest of us?
When you start a baby, pray for an easy birth. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to write about her?
Because it wasn't as much writing about her to begin with. When she took ill, you know, she sort of rapidly declined. She had lived on her own for years in the house, and then we'd noticed a bit of confusion, and then she fell and broke her hip. And we realised, right, this has to stop. Somebody needs to be with her in the house. And then she fell and broke her other hip just after getting out of hospital. And then suddenly it was just, she needed 24-hour care. and we had to do it. And our attitude really was, we'd promised her we'd look after her. There was no way we were putting her in a home. You know, she was staying at home where she wanted to be. So really we had to look after her, and thankfully there was enough of us to do it. I don't know how people manage it if there's families of 3 or 4 or 5, you know, I don't know how you would do it. But we all basically jumped in and set up rotas and took a night each and stayed up all night, and lists again, yeah, and diaries. And the diaries was the big thing, because there was so much coming and going every day, we had to write everything down, you know, because if somebody was giving her 2 paracetamol, you had to write it down to make sure somebody else wasn't coming in an hour later and giving her another 2. You know, so sensible and practical we had to use it. But during that time, we used those diaries for, some people wrote little, but some people wrote loads, and it was like you're offloading yourself into it. So after my mammy died, there were 3 diaries there, so I asked, could I keep the diaries? And it was my sister Eilish, who lives in America. She says, you know, maybe you could do something with them. And I thought, you know, I might just do that. And it was that I thought, this is a common experience. When somebody has dementia, you think you're doing it on your own. But see, when you start talking to people, this town's full of people who are doing the same thing. You know, and that, I think, a common experience. I really felt this is well important to say this and to write it down and to say this is the experience of it. This is what it was like for us.
I don't know about you, Jeremy. We had a dear family member who went through chronic illness, and we lost her. And there's only so much medicine you can take. My experience was that it's more about the stories and the human moments. And I have a feeling from this book that this is not a medical book. And you're not telling us anything about dementia maybe that we didn't know before. No. But there's the human coping mechanisms more than anything.
I think really it's the story of how we dealt with it and how we coped with it, and also how my mammy coped with it. Because there was still a bit of her there even up to the end, you know. And the saddest part about it was occasionally we would have seen my mammy struggling to hold on to a wee bit of reality that she still had. She knew there was something wrong. Even near the end, you know, she knew there's something, my head's not right. Or she would have says, I'm going to the doctor because I need new legs. My legs aren't working. You know, so we were you know, that she was still there, and it was how we sort of coped with the shocks of that, you know. Occasionally, you know, the things she would have come out with, she would have asked, you know, her reality wasn't always right now. Her reality would have been the past, and she would have forgotten my daddy had died, and she would have said, where's your father? Is he not in yet? You know, those shocks for us were, that was a blow. That was a punch in the stomach every time you heard that, you know, and we had to just be honest with her and say, this is the way it is, you know. So
your daddy was well known in Derry, wasn't he?
Very well known, I think, yeah. Don Bradley, yeah. Played in Charlie Kelly's Ceilidh Band.
Accordion?
Button accordion, and would have played weddings and all sorts, but played in the bars as well. So yeah, now to me it was just my daddy, and I was 15 when he died, you know, so.
Very musical house.
I think so, yeah.
Well, I mean, for fear of stating the obvious, I mean, Michael happens to be your brother. I wonder what did she keep. When that all happened, the Bradley family, and suddenly if you have a brother that's doing very well in the music industry, does that change things? How did your mommy manage it?
Well, yeah, I suppose I didn't want this to be a sad book. I wanted this to be about how we cared for her, and I wanted it to be about her as a person, you know, and how she raised a family and what that family was like. So I've taken sort of episodes through, you know, those years going back, you know, and obviously one of them was 1977 and Michael and the Undertones, and it was just a bit exciting and mad, and we all kind of accepted it.
But what was her attitude? I assume that a lot of siblings are all excited, and Mommy's sitting going, what?
My daddy would have sat and watched, you know, if it was on the news or something like that. My daddy would have sat back and kind of went, for God's sake, stop acting the Candyman, you know, like this to Michael. But my mommy was just, she wouldn't nearly have sat down if he was on the TV or something. She would have been out doing something and she'd come in and look. But you knew she was really chuffed.
Very good.
But just in a quiet way. My mommy was very understated, you know. Yeah. She wouldn't have been wild demonstrative at all, and she accepted things the way they were, but she was delighted with that.
Geraldine, you talk about her coming and going. Did you have a sense from your mum that she was preparing you, this massive family, this loving together family, for her departing? Did she have a sense of that?
No, I don't think so, no. You would have got glimpses of her occasionally, you know, that you knew that's still my mammy. She would have said stuff, you know, and you knew that's my mammy there, you know. But no, there was not that she was preparing us for her not to be there. I think near the end she was, because, you know, she was just deteriorating all the time. She couldn't understand what was wrong with her. She couldn't understand, and she almost blamed herself for not being able to do the things that she always did. You know, and that was sad to see, because my mammy never sat down. My mammy never stopped working for us or in the house. That was difficult. I found that difficult when she criticised herself, because she couldn't understand that she couldn't walk, or she couldn't understand why she didn't want to get up in the morning, you know, that kind of way. And then there were funny things where she would be thinking, you know, she would say to you, I don't think I'll get up. I think I'm not going into my work tomorrow. You know, when she remembered. And at that time, she would obviously thought she was like 17 and working in the shirt factory.
Which one did she work at?
I don't know.
Did you know? No.
I don't know. You know, see the things that you never asked your mother when she was alive, and you should have asked at the time.
Geraldine, I get a sense that this book has been, and I say it respectfully, it has been good for you, that you've immersed yourself in the emotion and the loss of your mother, and this book maybe has been good for you.
I think writing it let me put an awful lot of things to rest, and figure out how I felt about her dying. And that was good. It's difficult for me to read. I find it now when I read over it, it's difficult. And I'm proud of it. But I would get choked up reading bits of it. And I can imagine the rest of the family are like that. In fact, I'm fairly sure of it. Some of them may never read this, because it's a sad book. Not meant to be sad, and there's funny bits in it. And I tried to keep it as honest as I could, while being aware of other people's feelings, if you know what I mean.
Without digging too deeply at that, maybe it's a book that only the youngest could get away with, the wee cheeky one.
I think so, maybe, yeah. I had the brass neck to do it, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, but I always wanted to write. Do you know the way people say they'd love to write a book? I always wanted to write. I never knew what to write about. This was like a gift that was handed to me. It gave me a structure, it gave me a subject, you know. And
so even in her passing, she's given you a gift?
I think she'd kill me if she knew I'd done it. She would kill me. If she wasn't dead already, she'd die, honestly. But I think she'd be very proud. I really do. And I'm holding on to that thought, you know.
Geraldine, it's lovely to talk. Not an easy thing to talk about, but thanks for popping in. I'm sure that people listening to this, especially Craig and people, will want to know the bars anyway. But you know, there's serious subject matter in here in terms of the dementia and looking at that. But where can people get the book, and when can they get it?
Well, it's available on Kindle. I put it out myself. I had sent it out to a few publishers and got no response back. So I thought, it's City of Culture, 2013. Just do it. And I put it out on Kindle last Wednesday night at 11 o'clock. Momentous occasion.
Any takers?
If we've had a few sales. I'm trying to stop myself going on checking the sales all the time. I've had 4 sales in America, and I only have 1 relative in America, so I take that as a very good sign. Yeah, it's available on Kindle. It's that strange Kindle price of £1.53. I don't know how they work that out, but yeah.
Geraldine, good luck with it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, no problem.
Geraldine Quigley, née Bradley, just on the passing of her mum, but the whole issue of caring for an elderly relative and that issue of dementia as it affected Geraldine's late mum, May Bradley from Craigan, Broadway.
BBC Radio Foyle with Mark Patterson.
Just the latest from Reuters there. We're getting it from our TV colleagues. The Kenyan government say nearly all the hostages are now free, and the 2 of the assailants, the shooters, have been killed as well. 4 Britons are now confirmed as